Business Foundations for Mums, with me, Kate Butcher, is the podcast to listen to if you are a mum who is ready to launch your business, not sure where to start, or wanting to turn that sideline into something more serious. It will be full of practical tips, mindset advice, and inspirational and honest interviews with mums who are juggling business and motherhood, supporting mums in business to turn your dream into a reality. And welcome to today's podcast. Today we have Lolly Williams-Gibbs. I've got that the right way around, haven't I?
Yes.
Yes.
This one.
I just had a sudden moment and thought, is it Gibbs Williams or Williams? It's Williams-Gibbs. And I know that because we chat all the time on groups and messengers and things. So Lolly is here today to tell us all about her fantastic business, how she fits that in around motherhood and parenting and life. And we'll have a good chat today all about that. So first of all, Lolly, please can you tell us a little bit about your business and how that fits in for you with family life and being a mum?
Yeah, so my business, I have been called the Manifesting Mama, but I'm kind of in the process of sort of like rebranding that kind of thing. So I'm not sure what I'm going into yet, but essentially the business itself will be the same. So I'm a coach for mums. I empower them to live life by their design to manifest the life that they desire. But the difference between me and normal life coaches is I encourage mums to teach that down to their children, because my mission is very much about the children getting these tools that we wish we had when we were kids, or we wish that we had been taught in schools. And it seems so obvious, especially when you start that entrepreneurial journey. It seems so obvious, but it's only with hindsight that you go, well, that's just common sense, surely. But you're never taught that at school. So by teaching and helping mums to live life by their design, then they're then got those tools to then help embed that into their children. So hopefully we don't end up with such a mental health crisis that we've got so far. So that's kind of what I do. So I do one-to-one coaching, which is just kicking off. I've got a 1-to-1 6-week program launching in a couple of weeks. And we're just, we're getting started with that for the beginning. But by all means, come to me for any kind of advice. And I'm a talker, so I'm happy to just help where I can.
Fantastic. So where does that fit with family life for you?
Oh, right. Yeah. So the other thing about me that makes me a little bit different is I am a parent carer. So my 12-year-old has ADHD and potentially autism. We're still going through that. So I'm a parent carer there, but I also have chronic illnesses myself. So I'm not able to, work anymore. I used to be a teacher, but I don't have the capacity to work a job during a full day. So my business really works around me and my literal design of my health, my being able to be there for my children. And it is a tough juggling act because I've also got a toddler as well. So yeah, it's very much, I work from home and we plan like mad. Me and my husband, we very much are a tag team and we plan everything. We meet once a week. It sounds really, really organized, but we meet once a week because I think a lot of couples, they find themselves a bit of like passing ships in the night. And things get confused. So we have a shared calendar. We organize really, really tightly as much as we can. And we make sure that we plan in time for the kids. This is work time. This is time for the kids. This is family time. This is me time. And it sounds really, really tight and prescribed, but it works for us.
No, that sounds amazing. And I saw the other day you did, I think you did a reel, didn't you, about sitting down and planning the week with your husband,
yes.
And sitting down at the table and, looking at the bits of paper that you had in front of you.
And my laptop's out and my planner's out. Yeah, it's
absolutely.
It's almost a very business, like, because and the thing is, the other thing about my conditions is I'm undiagnosed ADHD. So before I met my husband, I was very scatty, and I still am, but sometimes it causes a lot of conflict in our household because obviously me, I'm very scatty. We've got a toddler, she's just turned 3. You know what toddlers are like. My son is ADHD, so he's all over the place as well. But my husband, however, is the other end of the spectrum. And to put it politely, like, I remember doing a joy thing, and I remember telling you this at our last meeting, and to just, you know, the type of person he is, we were doing a joy rant or a joy battle, an exercise at dinner once. So we just kind of rant off the things that make us happy. And he genuinely turned around and said, I like procedures and I like an empty email inbox. And that is the type of person he is. And he wasn't mucking around, he was being very, very genuine. And that's him. So it can cause a lot of conflict. But what that then does is he's actually made me very much more organized. And for his mental health, because he was really struggling with not knowing what's going on and the disorganization. So actually he's reined my scattiness in by him having that want and need to know what's going on. And if I don't, we have a shared Google Calendar, and if I don't put something in there, he's like, but you didn't put it in the calendar. He gets really frustrated with me. So I mean, and it is that kind of, it's actually benefited us both, but he's needed it for his mental health because he doesn't handle that, like, that scattiness, and it's actually helped me and the family. So you know, and we do that, and it is that, you know, I get the budget up. We have a spreadsheet, we get the budget up every week. Are we still on track? Is it working? Do we need to take money out of savings? Do you know what I mean? This is what's coming up. The Easter holidays gets planned. And I think a lot of people think that, you know, because we do so much, that we must be like rolling in money, but we're not at all. We just plan and budget, and everything goes down to the minute detail. And that's how we do it, really.
Absolutely. So, and I think that communication you have between you is so key and so important to that, because my husband and I are kind of, we're both quite similar in that sense. I'm a real budgeter. I've got everything on a spreadsheet. I know what's coming in when, and my husband has his own sort of ideas of the things that he's going to spend in, but we don't always communicate that. And that's where things can become tricky. And it was a snippet from a Brené Brown book a while ago that I was reading, where she talked about the fact that, you know, when her husband, you know, I think she'd been away, or her husband had been away for the weekend or something, or working away, and they were both going to be at home for the weekend. And both of them in their own minds were going, and, you know, one of them had been busy at work all week and the other had been away for the week. And both of them were like, oh, brilliant, I'll be at home. The other one can look after the kids, in their own minds. But they hadn't communicated that with each other. And then that had ended up with conflict. And when they actually sat down and went, actually, could I have a bit of time to do this? And the other one went, well, I want some time to do this. And they actually communicated that.
Yeah.
And you know, confession time, we put that in place for a little while, for a really short time. And then it fell by the wayside, and we've gone back into that way of not necessarily communicating effectively, and expecting that the other one will be willing to do a certain thing on a certain day without necessarily discussing it with each other. It's that assumption, I think, of what the other person is going to be doing and is expecting. And it really did give me pause for thought when I saw your reel about that, and thought, actually, we really need to sit down and talk about things. And similarly with the budget, you know, the budget changes and shifts, and costs have gone up, and new things have been added, and we've got new direct debits coming out, and we've got additional things to pay for, and so on. And our budget's very, very strict and very, very tight. But, you know, when there's a bit, that surplus, both of us go, oh, we've got a bit of surplus, I can use it for that. And the other one's going, I can use it for that. And then we end up at loggerheads. So yeah, I think that planning is so important.
Absolutely crucial. But what it also does is, what we also do is we have, like, I wouldn't say like a heart to heart, but any kind of like conflict or feelings get aired, because like I said, and I'm very open and honest with this, Steve, my husband, and my son they're not, so Steve is stepdad to my son. Because of their type of personalities, they clash quite badly. And it did get to the point where, I'll be open, I was kind of like, I'm not sure I can carry on with this. Like, it's got to that point. But we go through all the parenting courses and the ADHD, and he's understanding, but his feelings, what's happening is, him as a man, his feelings aren't felt and heard. And I'm trying to tell him off, essentially, for the way that he's talking to my son. And in the heat of the moment, he's in child mode. He's in defensive mode. He's not going to take on board any of the truth that I'm saying. So it's when we get down to these meetings, when we're in our rational minds and we can openly talk, and I can hear him, he can hear me, and he's then more open to how my son is feeling as well. And he started journaling every week, whenever him. And what he does is he's actually does it the opposite way round. So a lot of people put down the things that worry them or the negatives that's happened to release them. He actually journals down the good parts of what's happened between him and my son. So when it is tough, he goes back and looks at it and says, oh my God, we're okay. It's not that bad. And it remembers the good stuff. And that's something else that we can come across and go, right, okay, so this has worked. How can we make it better? How can we keep it going? So it is a mini, and because relationship, as well as I do, relationships are bloody hard. You do have to work at them. And keeping, like you said, it falls by the wayside, but keeping that going was actually one of my yearly, my New Year's resolutions, because my business, or my word for the year, was actually it was solid foundations. Like, I didn't want all of the big stuff. We did that last year. What I wanted was to actually embed little habits and get the solid foundations right, between fixing the relationship between him and my son, and setting up my business, the foundations of my business properly and slowly, so that they're done right. And it's these little things that are going to make that, do you know what I mean? And I think that's been key for us. So it doesn't look like we've achieved massive amounts, but actually being able to sit down pretty much every Sunday, and we make it now, when's our meeting? We don't say, are we doing it? It's when we've got time, what time are we doing it? Do you know what I mean? And that
absolutely.
becomes our priority now.
Fantastic. And can I ask as well, how do you have that meeting within the family context? Do you allow the children some time to go and play on their own? Do you do it when the children aren't at home?
No. So what we tend to do it on a Sunday. So, and I know that so when I do my planning on a Sunday morning for the week ahead, and I do that whilst body doubling my son. And I know that we've talked about this before. So the planner, so I sit at the kitchen table. For anyone that doesn't know what body doubling is, it's a technique that we use for ADHD children or adults, and it's becoming more and more popular. There's something in the ADHD brain that if they're left on their own, they won't do the task. Like, even cleaning, house cleaning is renowned. But if there's just someone in the vicinity, they're more likely to do it. They don't have to talk to them. You don't have to. It's called body doubling, and it works, and it actually helps me. So I sit down and plan. He sits and does his homework, and then that's done in the first thing in the morning, about 9-10 o'clock, just after breakfast. We get it done out the way, and then we figure in at what point of the day we sit and do that. And then he goes, it depends on when it is in the day, but he'll either go and sit in the front room with Elsie while she's watching Bluey and he's on his phone, and it's normally a good hour. We're there for a good hour, and and it's good for them. Or Elsie's having a nap and he's on his PlayStation. But generally we try and avoid it without the kids, because sometimes, and I'm not gonna lie, it can get heated. The first couple got very heated, But now we're doing it because we are doing it on a regular basis. It doesn't happen.
Fantastic.
So yeah, and very rarely because we're doing it more and more regularly, they are getting shorter as well. So we could kind of get it to 45 minutes, because what we found is when we were first doing it and they were taking a little bit longer, at 45 minutes, one of the kids would toddle down. Normally Elsie, telling me that she wanted a snack. Which is, it's fair when they were like 3. She's only just turned 3. So but yeah, that's kind of how we work. And I'm as much as I advocate being with your child and everything else, I'm very much, I don't know, it sounds awful, but I'm open with TV is my friend. Like because of my conditions, if I can crash very, very quickly. So if I need to lay and just chill on the sofa and have a bit of a snooze, Bluey goes on.
Yeah.
Peppa Pig goes on. And for half an hour, she's happy, she's safe, she's enjoying herself and chilling. And I'm actually getting that rest, and then I'm at capacity to be able to function.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I'm not one of those people that turns around and says, no screens, no this, no that. And I'm like, yeah, reduce it within certain things, but it is what it is. How many times have we sat there and binged Netflix?
Absolutely. And we're exactly the same in our house. I mean, I would not have got half of the work done that I need to do in my life if I didn't let the children go on their tablets, or my daughter's got a phone recently. So, they do spend time. And when they were little, it was the television. But like you say, it's about knowing the limits, isn't it? And, letting them on for, short periods of time. And granted, in the holidays, they get maybe a bit more time than I would like, but that's the way it needs to be for us to function and get on with everything else that we need to do. Even there's times when, I just can't cook the supper because my son wants my help with something every 2 minutes. So I'm like, okay, just go and watch something. Just go and watch something that's not going to need my assistance constantly and going to take me away from what I'm trying to do, because he cannot cope with me saying no to helping him. So it's easier to allow him to do something that he knows is a bit of a treat. So sometimes we have to take the easy route to get things done that we need to get done.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, and for me, that self-care, and this is one of the things that I teach. It's very much about prioritizing your self-care, because I have to. And part of me feels, if I'm honest, the reason I have the diagnoses that I do is because I didn't look after myself. I didn't give myself those breaks and look after myself, and that's why my nervous system is screwed now, which is what fibromyalgia is. And it was, and I know it sounds really horrible, and people that have fibromyalgia will be like, oh, I don't know how you're saying that, but I'm actually really grateful for being diagnosed with fibromyalgia, because it almost gave me, it definitely gave me that awakening of having to look after myself and prioritizing my self-care and my treatment, because there is no real medical treatment for it. It's you work with what works for you. But yeah, it opened and changed that world. And actually, in certain regards, I feel that I am far more enlightened. And I don't mean spiritually, I mean like I'm wiser, and do you know what I mean, than I ever was with all my degrees that I had before. Like, I've learned so much more on that journey of coping and managing living life with this fibromyalgia, and I'm happier than I ever was than before it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Absolutely. Because you have created your life by design around the things that are going on for you, whether that's family, whether that's fibromyalgia. You have created all of that.
And it's almost like it gave me permission to do the things that I've always wanted to do. When your body, you're in that moment and you're so tired and you're just like, I just want a nap. And actually, being diagnosed, I was like, okay, I that's what I need to do then. I need to go and have that nap. And it was like, I have permission. I have an excuse. Not an excuse, but I have a reason. And actually what I'm trying to teach is listening to your body and going for that nap before you need a reason. You don't need a diagnosis. You don't need to be told you can do that. That's your innate, and you just have that permission by being born. You're entitled to go for a nap when you want to go for a nap.
Yeah, if your body needs it, absolutely.
And that's what we need to do. And it is like listening to our bodies and listening to ourselves. And that's, you know, what I talk about in the S part of the design acronym is self-awareness. And it takes so much self-awareness to actually listen to your system and get to know what your body is doing, and not just being in that hustle energy.
Yeah.
And constantly, because that's such a masculine energy that we don't want to be in all the time, especially as women. We need to really dig deep into our feminine energy. Anyway, I'm not going to get onto that because we will be here for days talking about the difference between masculine and feminine energy. So
absolutely.
Yeah, but
amazing. So, Lolly, tell us a little bit about what it was that made you start your business. Where did the idea come from? What made you step into running your own business?
Okay, so I was a teacher for 11 years, I think, and I knew I always struggled to a certain degree. There was, you know, I knew that I was born to teach and I loved the actual teaching, but the background, politics, was awful. And I got a job, what I thought it was maybe the job role. So I wanted to be a head of year, which is pastoral care and the mental health side, because I've always been interested in that. And I got that job and I thought it was my dream job. But what I didn't know was, as well as being a head of year, I was the only drama teacher in the school, which meant I had to set up, run a whole department, as well as be a brand new head of year to a whole year 11 cohort to get them through their GCSEs, to get them into colleges, because obviously now the law is you have to be in education until you're 18, and this school finished at 16, so I had to get them into college or an apprenticeship or a sixth form. So there was so many more like interview processes and college application filling out stuff. And when I had that conversation with my line managers and said, look, this is impossible. And at the time I was a single mom as well, so I was like, it was just impossible. And I was really struggling. My mental health was deteriorating massively. And I remember sitting on my bathroom floor pretty much every night, just crying. And I was like, this is not right. And I went and spoke to them. And the answer that I got was, that's just the way teaching is. And I know that I am not the first person to be told that that's just the way it is. But I then turned around, like out of nowhere, that higher self, my higher self turned around and said, you know, just because that's the way it is doesn't mean it's right. And it was almost like I took myself back and was like, okay, what am I going to do about it then? Am I going to suck it up and just keep feeling like I'm not good enough because that's the way it is, it must be me? Or trust in my belief that it isn't right and leave? And for a long time I was more on this road of recovery or from burnout. I finally allowed myself to go to the doctors and be diagnosed with chronic depression and anxiety. Then, you know, COVID hit, and it took a while for me. I knew I wanted to help people. And I was talking to someone, it was over around COVID time. And there were a couple of different conversations I was having with people. And I was just naturally coaching them. And they were like, thank you, you've made me feel so much better. And I was like, okay, that's great. And then someone else was having a conversation, a difficulty with their child, and I was, I was asking them questions about how they felt about how their child would feel, and they're like, oh my god, yeah, that's really worked. And I'm like, this felt right. And that was then when I started looking into coaching, because I'd never really thought about it before. It was all something quite wishy-washy, and that's, it's been a bit of a road since then. I got, was found pregnant, and then all my diagnoses and illnesses and stuff. So it's been a very, very long start, really. And I've only really just sort of, what I feel like I'm just starting in my business, essentially. But it's been about a 4 or 5 year journey to get from that point of something needs to change to feeling well enough and knowing myself well enough to know that this is where I can do good. And I know that I am that person to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Gosh, it was almost quite an epiphany that you had in that moment of needing to just change what you were doing and not be stuck in that place where you were being told how it was, and that's not what you wanted.
Because I knew it wasn't right. And the other thing, and the reason why, and I suppose on that journey as well, what I really struggled with is all the advice that you get when you're starting a business, or you're looking into niching your business down, is to niche it right down and really get it narrowed down. And I was like, but I want to help mums that are lost and feeling like they've lost themselves. Because openly in my pregnancies, my mental health deteriorated so badly that I felt like, that's it, I'm just a mom, I've completely lost who I am. Obviously that was part of my career change and that epiphany, and it was like a big not breakdown, I suppose, but almost like this big change for me. And I'd lost my self-identity, I'd lost who I was meant to be, I'd lost all my dreams. Essentially, I was just going to be mum. So I wanted to help people like that, because that wasn't where it necessarily had to be. But at the same time, it goes back to that, why are we not taught these skills at a younger age? And the kids that I was teaching, the self-harming that I used to have to deal with, the and I know, like, even to my own son, when he's the age of 9 and he's self-harming, and I'm like, this is crazy. The society, and there is a lot in society, but I do think there are parenting attitudes don't necessarily work for our generation. The society we grow up in is a lot faster, a lot more visual, a lot more now. There isn't really time for breaking and resting. There's so much that they need to be taught at school, and our school system, and I thoroughly believe this, does not work for our children's mental health. It's it's heavily weighted on the academic, and it doesn't think about our actual skills that we need to adult, to the
Absolutely.
point of, like money, budgeting. I remember in my last year teaching that I did do some citizenship stuff, and we did like 1 or 2 lessons on money. But it felt very much like it was a token lesson. But do you know what I mean? Like the concept of tax, concept of insurance, the concept of law, and just running a house. And I loved the concept of there was a school that I know of, they had a whole kitchen set up, and they used to have lessons on how to use a washing machine.
Brilliant.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was in a special school.
Yeah.
Because and I'm like, why is it special kids need to know how to use the washing machine, but normal kids don't need to know?
Yeah.
Like, they need to know it as well. Like, I'm like, seriously.
Absolutely.
But also that mental health stuff. And I think we've come so far with our understanding of mental health, but it's not enough. It's kind of like going, you've all got problems. You're all got problems. But they're not going, but that's okay, because everyone's got problems, and this is how you handle it. before it becomes the massive problem. And that was, and for me, and that became a bit of a problem in my journey, and I suppose why it's taken me so long, because while I'm recovering, while I was having a baby and being diagnosed with fibro, and Jack's going through his assessments and stuff, I was also in this turmoil going, I really want to help these mums that do this, but I also really want to do this. And every person, business mentor is saying, you have to pick one. And I just had a turning point and went, I don't have to pick one. And I don't have to listen to that advice. I can follow my own journey, my own design for what I want. This business has to be about what I want. Otherwise, I'm a hypocrite.
So would you say that's the best bit of advice that you were given, to not listen to other people's advice and to follow your own journey?
I would say that's the best piece of advice that I would give.
Okay.
Because I don't think anyone actually gave that to me. And that's why it took me so long. And to be honest, the only reason I had that sort of strength in myself was I had a human design reading. And it was only then where I realized that in my human design, and this isn't where my design thing comes from, it just kind of fitted in really. My sacral chakra essentially is my only defined. So I am very much a feelings person. I have to run on my gut instinct, how things feel. The energy of the room might feel off, and that really affects me. Whereas everything else is absolutely, in my chakras are open. And she was saying that that's part of who I am. I have to listen to my gut, my feeling for myself. And I was like, it almost gave me permission to do that and go, I need to just trust me and my own thoughts and go with it. Because in addition to this, prior to meeting my husband, I was in a rather abusive relationship. And it wasn't violent, but it was psychological and emotionally narcissistic. And when you're in that kind of environment for so long, and unfortunately it was, my oldest son's dad, so it wasn't like I could just cut and run. So even after we had broken up, it was a very long process of still being, and him telling me that my thoughts and feelings were wrong and how I work was wrong. And then I'm in the teaching profession, and how they're very, this is the way, and I'm like, that doesn't feel right, but I'm the wrong, my thoughts and feelings were wrong. So to have that almost permission to trust myself, I was probably 30, 35, 36, and I don't want anyone else having to get to 30, mid-30s, nearly 40s, to actually be able to trust themselves and trust their own judgment and thoughts and feelings, because everyone is entitled to their own thoughts and feelings, whether other people agree with them, whether society agrees with them, they're valid.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's kind of where that advice comes from. So that's my biggest piece of advice, and the advice that I ignored, really. So if you
yeah, absolutely. So your biggest piece of advice is to ignore all the other advice and follow your own path. Absolutely. That's amazing. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
That. I do like that. And do you have a particular tool or resource within your business that you find really invaluable that you'd like to share with us?
Tool wise, for me, I mean, I can give you an actual software and whatever, but for me, my biggest tool is my success ritual.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And a
Tell us more.
a morning ritual that sets me up and puts me in the right mindset, because I massively notice the difference between when I do it and when I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And, I could, you've got all of like, I'm sure you've got all the mentors that talk about the actual process, like Canva and Facebook and platforms and softwares and stuff like that. But for me, it comes from me. And that's very much what my business is run on, and me showing up authentically and being in the right energy for me. So having that morning ritual that and routine, and again going back to that concept for me for this year that I'm working on, is that solid foundation, is I'm still trying different morning routines out, and I'm thinking I'm getting there. So like my husband, bless him, he gets up just a little bit earlier than me, and he brings me a coffee, and I wake up with my coffee, and I have a sunrise alarm, because with my conditions, the sun, like in the winter, I really struggle with my condition. So having a sunrise alarm really helps that little bit with the fatigue. Doing a little grounding meditation for like a minute or two. I read with my coffee for 15 to 20 minutes. If I feel like, this is the bit that I'm still not quite 100% sure on, I should probably do, I'm teetering with either like 10 minutes of yoga, 10 minutes of Pilates, but I'm still at that point where I'm like, I can't be bothered. I'll be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or will I plan to go out for a walk? Because I live on the front of a beautiful country park. So it is kind of like, oh, it's all right, I'll leave that for 10 minutes and I'll go out for a walk later. So it is that kind of thing. And then I have a shower, or if I've got more time, a bath with my Epsom salts, to help my muscles and stuff. And then, it's getting the kids up. If it depends on whether my husband's here or not, because sometimes he works from home, and if he's able to get the kids up, then I'll have a bath. But if he's not, I'll just have that quick shower. And it's that time, just even like half an hour, 45 minutes before I talk to the kids, is crucial for me to set me up for the day. And the other thing that I would say is, I notice the difference massively, and this is still a habit I am trying to break myself, and it is awful, is do not look at your phone. Do not look into social media. Do not touch it until you've done it, because this is like, some people, I am not one of them people, unfortunately, they can look at it and go, oh, I've got a message, and ignore it. My brain doesn't work that way. My brain goes, oh, message, quick. And I'm like, I'm laying in my bed. And I can't remember who it was. I think it was Jay Shetty said something like, why would you do that? Like, you wouldn't let 100 people walk into your bedroom and all start talking to you when you're in your bed, would you?
Yeah, it's true.
So why do you let them do it on your phone? So this is, and that is definitely, I'm seriously thinking, I put it on Do Not Disturb. I started that one.
That's good.
But I'm still not like, this is the one that I need to and I'm thinking about leaving it downstairs, actually.
I did that for a long time. I asked my husband for a present of an alarm clock, so that I don't need my phone for my alarm. So then I would leave my phone downstairs and I would go upstairs to bed. But unfortunately, the alarm doesn't really work very efficiently. If there's a power cut in the night, it doesn't happen often, but if there's a power cut, then it's a digital alarm and it loses power and the alarm doesn't go off. Whereas the phone doesn't do that. And the connection at the back became loose. And some nights it would just switch itself off, and it started happening more and more often. So ultimately and I tried recently, I was like, right, I'm going to get this connection fixed and I'm going to make it work again. And I think, out of 3 nights, the alarm only went off once. And then I couldn't remember which was the off button and which was the snooze button. So I pressed the button I thought was off and then left it, and then got a very grumpy husband later on because it kept going off and he ended up just pulling the plug out and getting angry with it. But I used to do that. It's a habit. I keep thinking I really need to get back into that habit. Why would I take my phone upstairs? Because I just scroll at bedtime, or I'll play a quick game on my phone, or I'll do something mindless when actually I could be using that time so much better for
Yeah.
I was going to say reading. I can't read at bedtime because I fall asleep. But I could be using that time for getting a bit more sleep when I go to bed or something.
Yeah.
There's
Or
better ways to use that time for
meditation or
gratitude or
journaling.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And that's
exactly.
kind of where I'm at now. I'm trying to I think I've got my morning-ish.